What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be changing the U-joints in this front drive line of this 2000 Chevy Silverado. So the first thing you're going to want to do is to take something, I used a white crayon, and mark where that yoke and the drive shaft all line up so you know how to put it back together when you're done. Then I'm going to go ahead and start unbolting those two bolts you see there, and then there's two on the top. That should free up the drive shaft in the front. This is the rear part of the drive shaft. Once we get that front part undone, I think I should be able to just pull this out of the transfer case. So these bolts on the front part of the drive shaft, there's nothing too special about them other than they get pretty rusted and are a pain to get out. They're a size 11 millimeter. I'm just using a closed end wrench on them. So these bottom two bolts are really easy to get to. The top two are pretty tough. I think what I'm going to do is just go try and move my truck back just, a little bit to see if it'll rotate this. Put those top bolts on the bottom. So I got them all loosened up at this point. So using a pry bar, I was able to just loosen that U-joint up enough to pull it out of there. Oh, and there we have it. So now that I got the drive shaft off, the first thing I want to do is go ahead and mark this other yoke that goes into the back. So after looking at these a little bit closer, it looks like these are the plastic mold injection type U-joints. So for these, what you have to do is actually heat them up and melt the plastic first before you press them out. The other type of U-joints, and what I'm actually going to be putting in, are U-joints that they come with clips either on the inner or outer side of the U-joint, and those clips hold it in. So that's what we're going to be using to replace it, but to get these out, I'm first going to need to heat them up. So hopefully you were able to see that on the camera. What happened is after it got hot enough, that plastic basically just starts oozing out of there. Looks like one of those little snake fireworks if you've ever lit one of those off. Careful with it because it's probably going to be pretty hot at this point. Now that the plastic is melted out, I'm going to press out this. I'm just going to use a socket on one side that's small enough that pushes on the U-joint itself, and then if you happen to have a socket that's large enough on the other side that would go on the outside that would allow the U-joint to go inside it, that would be ideal. I don't have a socket that's that large, so I'm going to try using this crescent wrench, and I'll just open it up wide enough that the U-joint can fit through there, and I'll just keep my fingers crossed that this will work. Well, as you can see, my vise failed me. It actually broke. So I'm switching to a new method for getting these U-joints off. I have the drive shaft just sitting on these jack stands here. If you go to like your local auto parts store like AutoZone, O'Reilly's, Advanced Auto, just about any of those will have a free tool rental kit that you can borrow. But if you get a ball joint press, it comes with this big C-clamp. You put the clamp on there to where it's pressing on one side of the U-joint, and then the bottom of the C-clamp is open so it can push down through it. The easiest way to use these is going to be with like an air wrench like this, but if you want to do it by hand, if that's all you have, our hand tools, that will work as well, but this is going to be by far your easiest option. Whoa, but you got to make sure you're going the right way. Let's try that. So as you can see, it pushed one side through. You can't get it off just from that, but you can take, if you can get the cap off, that'll make it so you can push it down the other way, get the other cap off. Now that one's off. Now I just need to do this other one, which will be a little bit easier. So just doing a quick comparison from the old U-joints to the new. There is a little bit of grease in there, and they have a grease zerk on there so that you can grease them, you know, every so often. This was the U-joint that was in the front of the drive shaft, and it's not terrible. There is still grease in these bearings and stuff. This one was on the rear. This one is completely toast. This one didn't even have any needle bearings in it that fell out. The rest of these are rusted solid. These ones are, you know, all over the place. The main reason I wanted to do this was because my truck was making some squeaking noises as I drove. I think this is what was causing that noise. As far as putting the new ones in, it's basically just the same procedure as the removal, but in reverse. So I'm going to go ahead and use that same press to go ahead and start pressing these back in. Before I press the new joints in, I'm going to go ahead and try to clean up these yokes a little bit. I'm just using some, I think this is 600 grit sandpaper. If there's any dings or something like that, you can get a file. Just make sure they're nice and clean, and make it so that the new U-joints just slide in there nice and easy. So I got these ends cleaned up pretty good. I'm just about ready to put the new U-joints in, but there's one more thing I wanted to tell you. I didn't do this at first, but before you pull all the joints off, you want to probably mark which direction the drive shaft goes. I would just put an arrow towards the front of the vehicle. Once the U-joints are out and you start flipping this thing around, you're going to forget pretty quick which end goes where. So just mark which end goes to the front of the vehicle. So to put the U-joints back in, I'm going to pull two of the caps off this thing. All right, so I have it in there. I just took the dust caps off the top and bottom, placed it in there, and just pressed them in by hand so far. The retaining clips for these are going to be on the inside. They have some U-joints that have the retaining clips on the outside. But for this, I'm just going to want to press them just in enough to where I can get those clips on. So these are the clips. I'm going to go ahead and put those on. There we go. So I got the new U-joints in, and they're moving around pretty good. If yours are stiff, one thing you can do is just take a hammer and smack on the yoke a couple times. That'll loosen it up so they move a little better. I've went ahead and already put the pins on this side of the U-joint here. So it's ready to go. All I need to do is reinstall it into the truck. To install the drive shaft back into the truck, it's just going to be the opposite of taking it out. So we're going to want to watch the front, make sure we have it lined up correctly with our marks. And then I'm just going to stick this back into the transfer case first, and then I'll line this top part up, bolt it in, and I should be good to go. I'm probably not going to show all that because it should be pretty straightforward, but hopefully this video was helpful for you. Please click my logo to subscribe, and as always, please like and share the video. Thanks.